Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the PCS. My name is Asterix. It is a pleasure to be here, joined alongside the legend himself, Mr. Clement Chu. Clement, it has been a bit of a while. I'm glad to join you in playoffs here. I have everything set up, thanks to the graceful Asheen for letting me use his setup. We've got everything blurred, so no one knows what's behind me. And we also have a thank you message before we get into it, Clement. CDBC Bank and Caliber, big thank you to them. Our sponsors also coming through, Right Games, Carry Live Co, and Garena for PCS's league, full operation and production. Now that we've gone through that, Clement, how are you, man? It's been like at least 4 or 5 weeks since we last talked.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to have you here and also to have the debut of some of our top 2 teams finally coming online. It's been over close to 3 weeks since we've last seen J-Team, and we also have PSG tomorrow, so the second round in the upper bracket is where it's at.
Yeah, it is, because again, our second round, I mean, it's going to be banging, especially up here. PSG, DCG, J-Team, CFO, 4 teams at the moment that people are expecting to make a full or partial run. And here in the PCS, you know, Clement, I've been shooting in from the sidelines, I've been watching, and I feel like some of our games so far have been pretty one-sided, right? Like, especially with CFO, as they've started off their playoff run quite dominant, opening up against MFT.
Definitely has been the case. We saw a 3-1, just kind of a lane gap between the 2 squads, to be completely expected. But for this matchup between CFO and J-Team in our series of the J-Team Multiverse, I think this has the potential to be our longest best of 5 out of any of the games so far. I expect this one to go the distance, a full 5 games, because these 2 teams are incredibly evenly matched.
Yeah, they are. Again, you know, J-Team's one eye pitted to go all the way to the grand final. I feel like there's a lot of other casters out there when we're looking through predictions that actually think CFO are going to go the distance. Clement, were you one of them? Did you pin CFO to make a deep run here?
I did have CFO taking the series 3-2, but I think it's going to be incredibly close. And my basic reasoning is I actually feel like CFO does have a little bit more of a late game powerhouse in terms of the roster. And with the addition of Shun, I think he's going to be the X factor. He's probably one of our most hyped 80 talents to come through in 2022.
I mean, again, a surprise, right? When we've seen Atlan the whole split. Now, you've already introduced me to the rosters. For CFO, changing AD carry, especially in playoffs, like, there was some pretty pog play we saw from this AD. And Clement, you were talking about his carry potential. Let's just go straight into this man. Because Shun has been someone who's been a nice surprise, considering that, again, they've run Atlan for the majority of the split.
Yeah, and the big reason I think Shun just appears a cut above is because of his team fight potential. This guy has, I think, a lot more explosiveness. He's willing to get into closer range and get more damage done. And, you know, CFO, they traditionally have not been an AD carry-centric team fight composition, but it does give them an extra out. So I see the CFO late game to be slightly better than J-Teams because they have the 4-1 and they also have the hyper carry in Shun.
Well, let's start with J-Team, though, because I guess we start on this side of the bracket. The team that I was pretty hyped out of, and the second seed of the regular season. I think J-Team, a team that really got into it, Clement, you and I talking in our rehearsals before, that it was a bit of a slow start for this team, but J-Team have really found their footing, and you and I, our conversation starter, led us to the mid-jungle duo.
Exactly. I feel like J-Team is a team about a 1-2 punch. Early game, it's all about how much damage Uniboy can deal. If he gets his big 3 champions in Syndra, Orianna, and Zoe, he can very reliably snowball and deal massive amounts of damage. He has 40 plus KTAs on all 3 of those champions, by the way. And when it comes to the late game, I also think that they've kind of settled down on an identity. Their biggest weakness on the team is they just don't engage very well, so they play a lot with range. Driver, his most played, has been Jace this split, and even when Uniboy is pushing the tempo, if you look at his actual champion picks that do well, it's all about counter engage. The Orianna, the Syndra, and the Zoe, they all typically have range advantage. So I think they've settled on a very clear identity in the start of the game, snowball Uniboy, and also in the late stages of the game, which is mainly to set up sieges.
Not as one-dimensional as it was earlier in the split, was it? You and I were having a lot of conversation about, oh, well, this team can be one-dimensional with the sense that it feels like it's about Lil V. It feels like they try and set up their bottom lane. A lot more options here. We know that Uniboy is the most prioritized mid laner here with jungle proximity. And that's why we come back to the dimension of this team that we can talk about in a little bit. We are flying through this, so let's go to the other side. Clement, CDBC Flying Oyster, a team that a lot of people thought might finish up at the top. They were the 3rd seed at the regular season. This is their very first, this is not their first, they've already come through the first round. This is their second playoff series, I should say. and they absolutely smashed Meta Falcon team, if you missed that one.
Well, that's just CFO for you right there. In a nutshell, I think man-to-man, this is the most talented roster in the PCS. Yes, even above PSG, I still believe that. The problem is their coordination is a little bit weak. I feel like they're one of the most discombobulated teams out of our upper tier, out of our upper bracket. However, the way they have settled this and try to negotiate between players is they play a completely just 4-1 style. If you look at Rest, his most plays, it's the Graves. They keep him on a side lane for most of the time, and Mission has fallen into more of a wave clear role. He's pretty much the highest profile Victor player that we still have in the league. He spammed a ton of it at the end of the split, and then you have the late game powerhouse of Shun coming into the field. So if I look at this squad, and I compare it to J-Team, I think neither of them are top tier in terms of objective team fights, but because CTBC has a more split push style and it will force more teams to actually look for the engage against them, I actually see CTBCF as having a slight edge in terms of play styles against J-Team.
Especially when, you just said there's some of the strongest in their role, right? From the start of the split to now, not much has changed where Rest and Mission been winning their lanes. It has been so big of these players to come out with an early lead. And even through jungle, right, as we look here at the matchup, Kongyue versus Gemini, how they influence that. You and I talking a lot about the mid-jungle 2v2 of J-Team. On the other side with CFO, it feels like Gemini has just had a roaring split and has been such a big impact for CDBC as well.
Exactly. I feel like Kongyue, though, is much more about himself being a snowball carry as well. He's played a lot of games on the Diana. Viego is his go-to champion. So he's trying to play more of a two-man game with his mad companion in Uniboy compared to Gemini. Gemini actually has very low jungle proximity with Mission, and Mission in this current iteration is more of a wave-clearing bot. He's there for the late game, but not really for the early game. So I don't expect these guys to actually run paths too often. I think Kongyue, what he's going to try and do is just going to try to take Uniboy out of lane, try to find ganks elsewhere, while Gemini is most likely going to be far more defensive in the setup. He's going to go for the strong early game junglers in Lee Sin and Volibear and just try to keep Kongyue in check.
Let's talk about that a bit, because it overlaps, doesn't it, with jungle pool. Lee Sin here seems like a very big priority in the series. As we go into pick and ban, as we welcome you into our second round, just a quick reminder here that we're in the upper bracket. Now, if any of these teams take a loss today, they will move down and go up against Frank Esports. Clement, am I correct? Or are we going down to Beyond?
I'm not exactly sure 100%, but either way, they're favored.
Yeah, a top-tier team, right? Again, J-Team CFO, second and third seed. We'll clarify that one in a moment. Let's go on to pick and ban. Clement, that Lee Sin I talked about is open. What else do you want to see coming through here?
So a couple of the big bans right off the board is Volibear. I feel like Volibear has been the most important champion recently for Gemini because it allows him to play tank, scale better into the late game compared to the Lee Sin. So they're snagging that one away. And I feel like Xin Zhao is a much less forgiving champion if you're trying to keep the enemy mid-jungle down. So basically J-Team are setting up a trap to run a very dominant mid-jungle on their side, exactly what they want to see out of Kongyue and Uniboy. For the other end, CFO, I think this is pretty standard fare. They've been banning Ahri basically all of their games recently because it is the best tempo champion. So I think this is pretty standard stuff. And I think CFO probably going to be leaning a little bit more towards a teamfight edge. That being said, early Nocturne, what?
Yeah, Clement. Like when things like Xin Zhao you talked about, Gemini has been a Hecarim player, pulled out of Viego, a Diana here and there. Nocturne, the first pick coming through, I mean, for CDBC Flying Oyster, a very different direction.
I'm a little bit curious about this one because the Nocturne, though it does have a good 1v1 matchup versus Lee Sin, it forces your composition to be much more about engage. And that has always been one of the weakest spots of CFO, is that they're just not a very good engage team. So it does seem like CFO, they're trying to... I have to say, I feel like they're overcompensating. You see a very early rotation Nautilus and then into a Nocturne. This feels like they're going to try some cheese that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, as we get the Jinx lock in as well. I'm curious about how this rounds out. Let's take a back step, though, because J-Team, it's a strong 2v2, Clement. And when we're just talking about Rest and Mission holding strength in their individual lanes, I mean, Lil V and Enzo have been doing pretty well, too. They want to beat down the bottom lane.
Yeah, I think J Team is clearly going for a full early game strategy right here.
Hmm.
Karma in the late game, not much utility. Definitely wouldn't say that's an Enso champion by any means. Same thing goes for Caitlyn. I actually still feel like she has a pretty weak mid game general. So what J Team
Yep.
are looking to do is strong mid jungle into a perma push bottom lane, which frankly does counter out Nautilus and Jinx earlier on, and they're just going to try to end the game with that sort of a high, with that sort of a snowball. Whether they can play that tightly, that's a big question to kind of gauge right here, though.
I mean, see what Kongyue can do here on the Lee Sin as well with early presence. We are banning away some of the mid laners though for the time being. The Trinity, I'm surprised to see him make it to the second phase here. I've been watching PCS throughout the season, and it has just been such a high priority. But moving down the patches, a lot changing here. We get more solo lane bans alongside it, and the Camille going through. LeBlanc already mentioned there, Clement. Again, against Mission and Rest, these are pretty good bans to take away some of their strengths.
Yeah, I think the key thing here is just the engage potential that a Camille does have with this composition. Once again, you are running the Nocturne, so you have to have some form of lockdown.
Yep.
For CFO, the big question here is what do they do with the Zoe? Like, J-Team is very clearly setting up for a sort of like outrange siege situation. We've talked about this as kind of their go-to late game mode. So I think the Zoe, they're just going to take it away.
Okay.
I think that's a really good call on Mission's part because there isn't a really strong champion that actually straight out counters on the other side. And Zoe, to be frank, can be a very good chase down champion as well to go in with the Nocturne.
Sure. And a lot of range now added in as well. Zoe, Jinx coming through, the lockdown as well from Nocturne, Nautilus. I'll ask you about that in a little bit because the J team, we're getting a pretty stock standard top laner for the time being. And now I'm just kind of curious as what they take into Mission Zoe, considering that Uniboy has been such a favorite. And Syndra, Clement, it's not available. It was actually banned by J Team. So we don't have a strong mid 2v2 setup, but it could be about putting eggs in the bottom lane basket further.
I'm not a huge fan of J-Team going on this route. I feel like if you look down this comp, it lacks damage so much in the late game.
Yeah, it does.
It really feels like they're just going to be flailing around. So they have to make all of their early push work. And to me, that's just way too narrow of a win condition to play through. You have to think about coming in with Paranoia and Zoe TP at level 6. I don't see how you actually push through that. That seems like a very brittle strategy. So I actually think CFO in the end, because they kept more avenues open, they ended up with a better draft.
Okay, well, I mean, we get an Aatrox to round it out, and at the very least, strong lanes here for CFO. Clement, run me through a little bit more about how CFO counteract, because you're talking about the narrow damage windows of J-Team. I understand that, I understand what the early game condition is, but I want to look more at CFO and see what avenues they have to play for, because it does look like a lot more of a flexible draft.
It does. I feel like for J-Team, the key thing to remember here is that their entire team severely lacks damage beyond the second item point. That's when you see the Gragas go into the tank build. That's when you see, just like the Twisted Fate, going for the rapid fire cannon. So this is not a team with a lot of damage. So they can't take straight 5v5s if they're not in a massive lead. I think that's the main problem for their comp. They're very much reliant on bottom lane push and siege. On the other hand, for CFO, I give them a lot of advantage just because of how many ways they can play through. Their sole goal in the entire early game is just to make sure that they get a kill in the bot lane. If they can stop that push just once, I feel like J-Team actually just run out of steam.
Yeah, I was going to say, with what you said, well, then it's all useless. Lack of damage coming through, a really key point that you brought up. So, again, what can Kongyue do here on the Lee Sin? Normally focus around mid 2v2. That's how J-Team have been playing. And it's interesting to see that this time around, it is going to be about influencing that bottom lane, get the snowball going. Otherwise, J-Team, as Clement just said, will run out of steam as we welcome you into the start of our second round. J-Team versus CDBC Flying Oyster. These two are second and third seed alike. They'll move into the semifinals into round 4 with a win here, waiting for the winner of PSG versus DCG. PCS is so competitive this split. If you're just tuning in, I think you're tuning into one of the most exciting splits that I have seen, both as a spectator and now, thankfully, as a caster. Clement, it has just been such a good talent split. Like, individual players have risen to new highs.
Yeah, we did have the, sort of dethroning of Beyond Gaming, and that opened up the way to the 3 J teams to kind of take over. So we have a really good split. Exactly. The JT multiverse. There's so many good teams right now. It's a situation where we've moved away from 2 teams dominating the league to I think we have 5 potential teams that could come up and win the championship. Now, to go a little bit more into the game setup right here, we have pretty standard builds across the board. Not seeing too aggressive on the Zoe, just going with the much more popular spell book. And if you look at the side of J Team, we have for Enso a very clear just kind of poke siege composition. They know that they have to make this bottom lane work. They're not going to be going for the Guardians to save lane. It's all out or nothing.
True, the comment coming through from Enzo. Nice catch. Even alongside start here from Lil V. And it's through the lane setup already that they're like, yep, let's build that bridge. Dredgeline dodged away from, and J-Team already getting the health bars down nice and low. So I guess, Clement, if you're a J-Team fan, that's exactly how you want to start your level 1 lane.
It definitely is. The one thing to mention here is that you see a lot of these rotations. The most important thing for the Karma is you really want to get your mantra Qs onto the backline minions as well, so that will help you push quite a bit. You take out most of the damage from the wave with that. So the positioning from Shun and Koala here, they know that they're going to have to take that first salvo anyway, but at least they're keeping their backline minions alive until now.
And the root comes in. It's a good little trade here from J-Team once again. Enso is aggressive as hell. Not really caring about the dredge line as the timer goes down. They'll hit level 2 and it continues to run like clockwork. Now, Clement, we also have to account for the junglers into this lane, as we will be talking about bot quite a lot. Kongyue has started with a topside path leading all the way down, but Gemini is matching.
Yeah, we do have, I think, just full clears from both sides. I don't expect Gemini to actually try and gank this lane on level 3 as a Nocturne. It's a little bit too difficult to pull off, and the HPs are very unfavorable for him. The way I'm seeing this game go is that we do have to be very mindful of the potential for Paranoia to actually cancel out Destiny Gate. So what can happen is Uniboy might try to increase a push or get a gank on the bot lane. He might pop the Destiny, but fail to get the gate off, because Paranoia could just take away Vision, and that just cancels out Twisted Fate. So that's a very possible thing to look forward to into the mid game.
That's a great point, Clement. I mean, again, Uniboy, he picked this after the Nocturne, and again, we knew it was about influencing the bottom lane. As Kongyue goes for a cheeky little invade, misses Vision ever so slightly. A bit unfortunate, and I think Pink still went down, but nevertheless, Kongyue not going to have a full understanding as camera returns to where it needs to be. That's Ignite down! Oh my god! Clement J-Team style in a quick 2v2.
I can't believe Enzo actually managed to get the tether off. He was able to lock Koala in place before the flash came in, and I felt like Koala just kind of played that a little bit haphazardly. He was just assuming that he wouldn't die and got full punish for it.
As Flash, Ignite was still available, but not worth mentioning. Heal used by Shun. It definitely is, though, so Summoner for Summoner trade, but the first blood going over to Enzo. J-Team's condition on the board. And already we have a Noon Quiver coming in from Lil V2, so this is a great start when it's such a narrow window that J-Team have to play through.
Yeah, I feel like if J-Team does not take the first brick gold in bot lane, it's over. Like, that's how narrow their win condition actually is. So they have to play super contested for it. And you can also tell that Gemini knows his win condition as well. He's just trying to force level 6 as soon as possible. He's just full clearing the entire way, and just trying to split the scuttle that way. And I think we're quickly arriving to that point where Uniboy, he's going to have his Destiny Gate online, but so will Gemini with the Paranoia. Ooh, gank in top lane.
Let's pause in top lane. Yeah, Sonic Wave actually connects as well. Rest flashes away, but it's matched. Kongyue wants to slow him down. The red buff will help out. Drivers right there. J-Team in both sides of the map are taking it.
Yeah, beautiful gank coming through the lane right there. If you look at the river, CFO had a lot of vision committed to Rest, making sure that he could just push that lane, but J-Team still catch him out with Gemini coming through the lane itself. That's always very difficult to anticipate for the laners right there, and caught him mid-trade as well.
It's a big deal considering Pickaxe was just picked up, and Kongyue, even pre-6, has gotten himself onto the map. So for J-Team, bit over a 1k gold lead at this point. And Clement, we'll have a quick look at the replay because it was a nice time game.
Yeah, very nicely done. Rest goes in for the trade. I'm a little bit dubious about that flash. I felt like that was an incredibly short flash to pull off. He was a dead man anyway. But he does trade 2 flashes for 1. So they are up technically 1 flash if it does come into effect when Paranoia comes through.
Yeah, good math. I'll take that. Paranoia is almost up and available further to that point. Gemini, you said, was racing for this, but look, the map is burning. Before this Nocturne even gets level 6, we have to pull out that this map is crashing very fast. J-Team are keeping on with this tempo. Kongyue now focusing around the bottom side, and it continues to be a map state that is just so favorable. Look at this. Koala again taking trades. Kongyue now spotted. And Clement, it still belongs to the J-Team side in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I'll be honest, this is to be expected somewhat. I think that, you know, with the bot lane push, it just frees up a lot more control on the bottom side. We've seen Kongyue poking into CFL's jungle multiple times, and now they're going to try and, you know, search for a 3v2 if it does happen. Gemini not going to show himself. In fact, he's been doing a lot of leeching here in the mid lane. This is a rather interesting strategy. I think his calculation was he wanted to leech to 6 before he went back towards the top side, so he could actually defend the bot. But now with the back happening with Shun and Koala, he's like, okay, I don't need to leech that much. I could just go for the top side now and try to hit 6.
But he will be spotted out. I mean, Driver's coming over with a ward at the ready. Puts it a bit shallow. I'm not sure. Blue Buff's already passed the wall, so Gemini won't get spotted out here. And Clement with the leeching news. He's pretty close to getting level 6. Kongyue is going to be starting up the dragon here. And one more camp means Gemini will finally be on the map. And Clement, we'll get to see what CFO can do. Because, again, stopping the bleeding. You mentioned the expected result of J-Team's early game here. But the Nocturne coming in from CFO has a lot of uses. And you were talking about the opportunistic windows that CFO have to play through in this first game.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways they can utilize this gank potential coming in from Mission. He can pick up extra summoners. You know, there are a lot of different boost ups that the Zoe could take. You could take the Rocket Belt. You could take even the Shirelia's Reverie just off the ground and suddenly appear in the bottom side. So I feel like the next couple of minutes, J-Team is going to have a much harder time trying to shove in onto this bot lane. And I do like this idea that they're showing right here. J-Team are like, okay, if we actually just try to do a 2-man push in bot lane, it's probably too risky. So how about we just do a quick recall into a potential Herald. I think that might be a smarter strategy to continue the siege rather than playing up against Zoe that is lane control plus the Nocturne.
True. Level 6 for Gemini now picked up. Gemini going to be starting up the Herald, so a good little tempo play here from CFO to potentially deny that. Remember, resets haven't come through. And right now, J-Team are outnumbered if they walk in.
And it looks like J-Team are just going to let this go, instead trying to all in onto the bottom side with the 1v2. Koala actually caught off of rotation right here. He was trying to join the top side, but then realized, wait a minute, this they're actually not roaming here. So in some senses, J-Team can be pretty happy with this result. They take another plate in the bottom side. They force Shun to stay away from EXP range. And, you know, the Herald, I think it's most likely going to get dropped mid, but it's going to be a while until they can transition pressure into the bot side again.
Especially with Kongyue nearby. Look at this. Gank path imminent. Or at very least helping push out the wave. Uniboy has Destiny as well, worth mentioning. So we always know that the paranoia interaction you talked about earlier could be coming through. But coming back to what you were just talking about, J-Team with all-inning bot were able to pick up another piece of turret plating almost a second. And you did put a timer on this saying that this bottom lane needs to be cracked. It needs to be first brick. It needs to be all turret platings taken down. Lil V is half the way there with Kongyue still hovering, Clement. So walk me through the next couple of minutes and how J-Team need to bring the pace against a team that has Rift Herald, against a team that still has a response with now Nocturne ulti being up and available.
So I think CFO are just going to try and go for the juggler right here. You can see that J-Team plays a lot of wards inside the blue side jungle, but it doesn't really matter for Nocturne. Like, he can always lane gank anyway, and he does have the Herald. So if they get just one killing gank off in the bottom lane, they erase all of J-Team's leads instantly. You get the double charge onto Shin, the Jinx gets excited, you're most likely going to get first brick off of that if it does succeed. So we know what the most high value play is on the map, and the question right now, I think, is for J-Team to see how they actually react to it. I expect Lee Sin to be heading bot lane once more to sync up his movement with his bot lane push, and at least try to take control of not only the jungle, he also needs to get ward behind the tower to make sure the push can continue.
True, catch out Koala, who a couple of times, you know, you mentioned his position. He's been pretty detrimental coming through. He's now roaming up towards the mid lane. Now for CFO, that Herald usage, whether it's bot, whether it's mid, is coming through pretty shortly, and Gemini's going to drop it here. Mission has priority once again, and this should be a couple of plates sent over. And Kongyue now being zoned out by Koala, so Mission going to share on the spoils of war here. Nice pot of gold from CFO. Catch back up in this early game and give Mission the priority that he deserves as one of the best mid laners in the league.
Oh, this Twisted Fate has just not been able to do anything. This is
Hasn't been able to leave.
it's kind of. I really think that CFO outdrafted by taking away the LeBlanc and then picking the Zoe themselves. That was such an incredible move. It just cut off all the tempo picks that J-Team had available, and I feel like J-Team just kind of forgot the interactions with Nocturne. You know, as a Twisted Fate, because you lack so much damage in the late game, you have to make your early game work, and right now it's 12 minutes into the game, and we haven't seen a single Destiny gate. It's just not been allowed to go through.
I mean, we haven't seen a Gemini ulti, but it doesn't matter as much, Clement. When J-Team is so limited here. I love how you talk about draft because you were being so nice. You're like, I'm not sure I like this. Instead of saying, this is pretty rough. For J-Team, it's been corner after corner that they've been hitting through here. And what I mean by that is that they've been pushing bottom wave, but CFO, they are that corner. They always have a response here. And nice little block there from Koala. They're picking up gold in this game. It's only 1,000 lead. It's never really been more than that. As the next dragon comes up, we have pretty equal items coming through, bar maybe a little bit having a little bit of extra gold sitting with the Gale Force.
Yeah, for sure here. This is a good power spike for J-Team, so I expect them to push extremely hard on this back. But a couple things to mention here. I feel like if CFO take first tower first, even if it's in the mid lane, they just cancel out so much siege potential from J-Team. It means that J-Team are going to be completely open to flanks. You have an Aatrox coming in behind the Caitlyn with World Ender. That doesn't sound like a great setup. So I feel like J-Team, I'm going to move. I'm going to clarify their win condition. But I feel like on 2 items, they at the very least need a 6,000 gold. I'm not even kidding. It has to be that high for this game to be even close when it goes into 30 minutes.
So they want a big old fight soon, or they want this first brick to go down again. Where's the gold coming from? Right now, it's going to be second dragon for J-Team at the very least. So moving towards dragon win condition. But Clement, you know that League of Legends is an unfair game. This will be a Cloud Soul. Ready? Oh, no, Tex deck. Wow, okay.
Save.
Saved a little bit. Saved a little bit. But still, second dragon goes down at the very least. I want to talk to you a little bit more about what we're going to see because I'm still waiting for Uniboy. I'm trying to get you to set me up for Uniboy, but there's still no ult available. He's getting 3-man mid. Rest is diving the top side. Not sure what's going on there, but it might not matter because mid has just been traded off to the turret.
We do have the first brick gold going over to J-Team, so definitely a small win right there. But as we've talked about before, this still invalidates the potential for Caitlyn to siege mid. Caitlyn right now doesn't have a lane to go towards where she can feel safe. I feel like they probably have to swap towards top lane for Caitlyn to have like a more of a short lane where she can actually hit the tower. But it's just a little bit like the lead isn't big enough to justify the draft so far. The 500 gold lead, that's pretty much nothing. And if you look at the items across the board, the first mythics are online. You don't have a massive gap where the first fight is going to be mythics versus non-mythics for J-Team's side. So if I'm looking at this, I feel like J-Team, they have to make the most use of the next Herald fight. Like, the next Herald fight has to be massive for them. They need picks, and they need to snowball.
Okay, well, next Herald is coming up in about 8 seconds. There's Destiny! Clement, we get it! Uniboy locks him down as well, and Koala might be caught out, but the interaction with Paranoia means that 2 deep now. It's a top laner, a J-Team driver running for the hills, the Death Rocket, big damage. Shielding as well, a great response, but Mission is here to play. The Zoe with a bit of extra range, and there's health bars that's starting to blink on J-Team as CFO make themselves known around the Herald.
Yeah, I feel like J-Team, for them, that was more of a defensive Destiny Gate into an opportunistic catch. They wanted to pop it just to make sure where the Nocturne was, get better setup, and maybe see if they could catch someone. But I feel like the catch itself was way too hard to actually make work in that situation. And right now, I feel like CFO should have much stronger potential in this team fight as they're grouped up as a 5v5 here.
I mean, look again, as J-Team get knocked up on the way in. Rest is zoning here, level 11. The Herald just taken. Clement, you said J-Team needed this Herald. They needed more momentum, and CFO just walk in and take it.
Yeah, they burned a lot of ultimates in the last fight, and here we go.
Oh, driver. Explosive cast going to be used. At least they get Koala on the way out. Okay, 1 for J-Team is a response, but there won't be anything else. Herald for the kill as J-Team do have mid lane priority. We'll see if they can finally push down another turret.
Very nicely done by J-Team right here. I feel like CFO got a little bit greedy trying to brute force their way through the left side of River right here. They get punished for it, and you know, they do get 1 kill back for that. So we are seeing a 600 gold lead here. But the question on my mind is always going to be, you know, what's next? Where do you siege up next? The Herald is most likely just going to go top for CFO. They're going to take a tower here, and we'll watch this once again. Again, to point out, this is a CFO already taking down the Herald. They've already won a big chunk, but they go a little bit too far for Driver. He's very tanky at this point. Did go Everfrost first, and there's also a lot of brush control just coming from the Caitlyn. So I feel like CFO got a little bit greedy with that one, but it doesn't change the overall game plan of them just being able to strip side lanes and deny siege potential from JT.
Yeah, again, Rest is taking this turret down with ease. This Aatrox too, we haven't talked much about. We saw a dive up in the top side, and it's kind of rare not to be talking about Rest in a game, Clement. I feel like some of the best of CFO games have been about Rest, have been about mission, or maybe, you know, Gemini comes into the mix. Like, these solo lanes are so good. And this time around, it's just been a bit of a CS gap. Rest has just been playing his part against the Gragas, not being able to do much because I guess CFO didn't need to do much in this first game.
I gotta say, I actually love this Aatrox pick. You really want to pick an Aatrox when the enemy team is lacking damage. If they can't force fire you down, if they don't have multiple carries, then Aatrox just gets to survive forever. And at the very least, he gets to drag J-Team to a point where they can't go into, you know, 3-item crit items because they have to have someone build for anti-heal. So I think it's a great pick in this situation. It fits the build that they want to play with the 4-1 strategy with Rest. Just overall, yeah, I just love it.
I mean, it was a final pick here in the draft, right? And you and I have been very draft focused in this game, and it's so rightly so. For J-Team, they're a team that we know will often play around Uniboy Kongru. Maybe not the right time to talk about it because we get a fight to see if J-Team are worth talking about in this game one. Clement, they've got to give us something here because they hover around the third dragon. CFO with great positioning. Mission is the one. He got Lil V. That's the damage on J-Team. The rocket hits him for half HP, and Rest again, you said, couldn't really get bursted out. He's at half HP, but still with the ulti. While on the backline, Koala deals with 2 people. J-Team are spread thin. Now, they may kill Koala, but look again. Mission has free roam with a Gale Force and a double kill already going to Gemini. CFO make it 2 for 1, Clement, and we're not even at the 20-minute mark.
I gotta say, I feel like J-Team just ran out of ideas on how to play that fight. They were like, what do? We can't take the 5v5 right now. We're in a power trough with Caitlyn, and CFO are bearing down on us. We can't even pop Destiny Gate before we see where the Twisted Fate, where the Nocturne actually is on the map. So they go for a 5v5 Hail Mary type of play. Their 80 dies right off the bat, and they pick up a very inconsequential kill on Koala. Like, he's already had 3 deaths. He doesn't really care if you kill him or not. So
True.
I feel like if J-Team want to do this, they need to be pushing in the bot lane and then transitioning back. They need to make sure that, you know, CFO is coming from 2 directions and they can actually catch someone out on the other side. This was, I don't know, this was just kind of messy, and it was very low priority for Kongre and Yumi Boy to take the Nocturne kill. I mean, they do get it, but, like, does it matter? I don't think so.
I was going to say, like, what astounded me about that play is that for Lil V to walk up, Clement, Mission just took a free bubble. And as soon as he gets caught, we come back to what you've been harping on, what I've been asking you the whole game. The damage source in J-Team, if it goes down, J-Team might be screwed. So, in this game, Lil V drops in the fight, and the rest is history. CFO now with the gold lead at 20 minutes in. They picked up the Dragon as well to slow down another potential win condition here for JT. And Clement, at this point, you got to tell me, like, what JT do now that they're at a disadvantage, that they haven't been able to get off anything, that they are at 2 items, and as you said, should be at 6,000 gold lead, but they're actually at a deficit.
There's one thing I will guarantee you about the upcoming games in the series. We will never see a Twisted Fate counterpick himself into a Nocturne. Like, that's just not going to happen afterwards. This Nocturne's just has just been killing J-Team's strategy overall. And look at the Nocturne build right now. He already has the Randuin's complete to just sit on top of Caitlyn. Like, the Caitlyn, she's gonna go crit, like, she doesn't have another build to go for, but she's not gonna keep doing anything. The Cold Steel passive is going to be impacting her, so I don't know. I don't know what J-Team really do. I feel like J-Team's best chance is, okay, we just set up Siege. We do still have a Siege poke comp. We have very good disengage with the Lee Sin and the Gragas, and we just hope that CFO fumble and engage. That's probably their best bet right now.
Okay, thank you, Clement. I took a bit, but we got it. I love how hard it was
think about
for you.
that.
Yeah. Second Destinies, by the way, where's it going? Defensive again. You're right. Maybe we don't see a Twisted Fate, at least at this style, or in this style, I should say, from Uniboy again. I was going to say before we got into that fight, like, for J-Team, the J-Team we know is the Kongyue Uniboy show. And this time around, it feels like, again, we've put all eggs in the bottom lane basket. The draft you talk about was so narrow. And it doesn't give Uniboy a potential to carry when he's been such a great Syndra player. Like, this is the man who... I'm just looking at the games, Clement. Like, Syndra, Zoe, even the Orianna, the Ahri he's picked up 3 times. This is not a Uniboy style opening up this series.
For sure. I feel like Uniboy has to have his early game damage going in. And, looking at the stats, when J-Team wins, Uniboy is dealing 600 a DPM. When he loses, he's only doing 300. And I have to say, this game feels a lot closer to the later than to the former. Here we have the 2-man, though.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do. Gold card is going to be spell shielded and immediately just stops. Sonic Wave means nothing here. Gemini holding 2 members at bay while the rest of CFO are barreling down the mid lane, Clement.
Yeah, we'll see how they...
here comes Mission. On a trap, does he care? That was close. Lil V burns the heal preemptively. And Mission only just out of range, but the rest of CFO say, hey, okay, if we can't do it through mid, now we move Rest down to bot, and they're just pulling J-Team so thin.
Nothing much J-Team can actually do about this. They went for a super risky play in the top side, got completely countered by Gemini and just a spell shield right off. Yep. They have no answer on the other side of the map. They essentially take half their tower HP in the mid lane and take a full tower in the bot side. So CFO are now in a very sizable lead, and it's going to get worse because CFO can split push now with Rest. He's going to be able to stay alive even against Kongyue and Uniboy. I think if those two try to take down Rest might very well just win the 1v2.
True. I mean, that's a huge CS gap, and 2.5 items strong is going to mean so much. Lil V, worth mentioning, the damage source of J-Team is getting towards his third, but again, he keeps getting hit by these bubbles, these paddle stars. He's now without his heal. Flash is available, but how quickly would that be burned? As Dragon's up, but CWC Flying Oyster hovering on the outskirts for now with a flank coming through from the man in the top lane.
Oh, but this is a great way to catch someone out. They're going for
Clement,
Rest.
Do they have enough damage? Do they have enough damage? Gold card through, he's over the wall, but everyone from J-Team are grouping up. Look, Rest took no damage from Ace in the hole. And Driver even getting poked out by Mission. It's a slow play. But J-Team, as they walk through, have used quite a lot to get through Rest. And CFO pacing forward. It's taken here by J-Team, but CFO are coming back in. Driver not tanky enough. And here's the reset from Shun. He's exhausted, but he ain't tired yet. A dredge line from Koala. And CFO, through draft, through game, have styled on J-Team in the first game of this series.
Goodbye, Uniboy. Not able to get anything done right here, and this fight was just absolutely ridiculous from start to finish. I feel like J-Team, I don't know why they did full commit to Rest right there. The paranoia went down, and I feel like they were just scared. They didn't full commit to Rest at all, and when paranoia was over, there was just no chance of them even holding that position. They do get the seal onto the Drake, but they should have hightailed out of there as soon as possible. Like, there was zero chance thinking that they would win that fight after, like, 4 people stand there wailing on Rest for... that felt like at least 5 seconds, and Rest wasn't even half HP!
I mean, he took no damage in the initial engage, Clement, and then we saw it again, and Rest... Like, you've been spot on with this one. You deserve a pat on the back because Rest took so much time and so many resources from J-Team at the start of this fight.
And look at this, they were actually very hesitant on all-inning on him. They were very scared about the fact that Nocturne could just fly in. So you could tell Uniboy didn't even throw his gold card at Rest. Like, he tried to play this super slow. They're very scared about this situation, and I think this is where J-Team really overstepped. You get the objective, you gotta hightail out of here, man. You can't stay around. for the after party. You're not invited to this one. And CFO just completely decimate them.
It's just nice to see, right? Even though we know this one comes down to what's been talked about all game long. CFO played it really well. You know, Gemini here on the Nocturne hasn't really need to use his ultimate many times. Again, you talked about it as a negating tool towards J-Team, towards Uniboy. But importantly enough, the game's been going smooth for CFO, and this is what you want to see, right? Great solo lane play from Rest and Mission Clement. Really solid mid lane, right? Mission has been great this game, making sure Uniboy could never move. CFO really know their strengths, and opening up this series, it's nice to see that translate after they stomped MFT in a similar way, right?
Yeah, I feel like this game CFO actually brought out a lot more depth in terms of their draft, and I can't believe Kongyu actually did 0 damage right there. He didn't even Dragon Rage someone. 0 damage? That's
that ain't
actually pretty peculiar.
Yeah. I don't think he did. But I'm not sure if he died at the start of the fight. Oh no, he hasn't died actually, so hang on a minute. Clement, that's not what you want to see out of your jungler. But it's kind of been the story. Kind of been the story of this game.
We do have very suboptimal builds coming out from J-Team right now. We do have a Lord Dominic's regard, you know, trying to circumvent the Randuins here. But if you look across the item builds, there is a lot of armor for sure, but like it also means that your main damage dealer just isn't packing that much punch at this point for the Caitlyn. So this is kind of like a 4 items by Caitlyn, and you can tell that she's also eyeing just for a Quicksilver Sash before that. So it looks really, really rough right now, and I'm trying to figure out how J-Team should play this, and I still feel like their best chance is to bait and engage here. CFO, not really known for their engage prowess, and this is an engage where they do have to flank, so J-Team, it sounds risky, it sounds suicidal, but they have to put themselves in harm's way and just draw CFO out so they can potentially find some better team fights. They don't actually want to walk in onto CFO in terms of a Baron fight. I don't think their team has good potential at pushing terrain.
Well, they were doing that before, but J-Team unawares until about now, thinking, all right, well, CFO is still waiting in the brush, but Baron started out. Destiny's going to be used here. Full vision as he goes to the back of the pit. Driver here with an ulti, but he gets Dredgeline in, going asleep, and as he gets tucked into bed, the Death Rocket going Sly. He hits Golden, and you can see the J-Team is still on the edge of this one, but Dredgeline hits the target member. Big old Koala drop bear on top of the face of Lil V, and Rest is doing the exact opposite. This guy is woke. As Kongyu heads over the wall, and J-Team is scattered to the wind. Mission missing all but none. There we go once again. It's a paddle star of the ages, and CFO can do no wrong with some class play. Once again, Kongyu is the remnant of this one, and Clement, I'm not sure how much longer he has to go. The kick finally comes through, but Mission's here to save his support's life.
And this is a 40-second timer on Kongyu as CFO using the teleport and looking to close out on the game sooner rather than later right here. Looks like they will turn around for the safer play. Lil V is still coming up here, but man, that was just such a spanky coming in from CFO. I think most critically was CFO just somehow gave up on Lil V. It was really weird to see, but Lil V actually just being in the front lines for a split second gives Koala that opportunity to commit the full engage. Like before that, J-Team even had all the traps set up. They were moving up the ramp, but for a split second there, just nobody was covering their main AD carry.
It happened in the last fight, Clement. Remember again, into range of the Sleepy Trouble Bubble. Like this is the second time that Lil V has been very aggressively positioned, and Koala's laughing, Mission's laughing. I think CFO in general should be laughing with this game number 1. As the gold lead's immense now. The Baron not picked up, but with the team fight, gold is just worse than before. We're positioning. We're going to have a quick replay here, Clement, because it'll beef up again.
This is a really good start of the fight to Driver. He takes a lot of cooldowns, and then he moves up the ramp. But I want to see why Little V was actually in the front line. Oh, no!
Gragas
he just went in for a
enough.
headshot! Oh, that was so not worth it. What? Oh, man.
That's so unfortunate. Dude, if only Driver was a bigger unit, man. If only Gragas had a bigger character module than he does.
I don't think you
It's
ever
massive.
walk down the ramp in that situation, though. Like, I understand the driver could have taken that, but for me, from my perspective, that was still mainly on Little V. Like, what?
Yep.
Getting that one headshot, definitely not worth it.
Oh man, that's it's rough to watch, but still a nice straight line here from Koala. I'll say that's perfect timing if we've ever seen one.
Very well.
We're back around the Baron though, Clement. Are you ready for round 2?
I am ready as can be. Kongre already starting off a pretty low health right here. I think the key member does have to be Driver once more. He's tanky enough, he can take that first shot, and if he can find Shun with the explosive cask, that would equalize the damage differential between these two squads, but it really does have to come down to him.
Such a hard ask at this point, right? CFO, every single time J-Team have looked for one of these angles, has been negated, and now in front of the Baron once again. They've got the poke down, they force J-Team out. Baron starts, and it's going down pretty quick. J-Team moving in, and Kongyue needs a miracle still for this game 1 to turn back around, but Driver again reeled back in. Gemini pulling off, and Baron stopped. J-Team may have stopped it for now, but CFO still hovering around, and looks like for now it'll be stopped. It will actually be a base return, which is good for J-Team to say the least.
Yeah, really nicely done here by Driver. You know, he knows that he's the only one that can open up the map, so he's poking his head in there. He's getting a lot of good poke damage. And if you look at his build, he is going to be going for at least 2 AP items here, so that's going to be very helpful around the Baron Pit, where you do have the big purple worm shredding everyone's MR resistances. And I do like this setup from J-Team, where they're basically placing a whole line of traps, and if you try to go forward, what they can do is just explosive cask, split your formation, and focus one target that actually gets trapped on the on this Yordle trap line. So very well done here by them, but they still need to execute it. They need to pull it off to come back into the game.
Again, seems hard, but like you explained it, Driver, Lil V interaction, important to notice. Destiny's over the wall, but Paranoia used Clement. He's been found out. And as he comes out, Boy just realizes he's dead. Dredgeline goes in against the wall, but doesn't matter while Rest is dealing with the rest of them. Lil V in a lot of trouble here as Driver about to get exploded. Rest flashing forward. The chase begins. And even though they get out, Koala still here with a flash, a depth charge, and Rest will begin again. Lil V running for his life. He cleanses out the Dredgeline, blocked by a minion. Luckily, they escape, but the rest of their team in shambles as CFO run it down the mid lane. They want this one to end now.
Yeah, CFO just charging down. 4v2 in this juncture. How long can Lil V stay alive? He's got that red buff. He's kiting back and forth, but he's severely outnumbered right here. Unfortunately for them, though, Driver is able to shake away from Gemini, so he's able to return to base, and it looks like CFO will turn around for the Baron instead.
Part 4, Clever. We've seen Baron started so many times. Uniboy without his ulti, though, and Kongyue has only just respawned, so if this one gets started up, there's going to be no jungle presence, but CFO are backing once again. So, Clement, this game going a little bit longer than I expected, but I guess CFO are just going to keep having fun because everything keeps going right for this team.
Yeah, I don't think they really mind about these scuffles right here. Now it's J-Team going for the desperation play, but this is a Hex Gate map. You can come towards the Baron Pit so quickly. Oof.
Gemini has ult. 5k. They're still burning it down. Teleport's being used. CFO need to make a move, though. They're nowhere near the pit. Paranoia is going to be burned, but they need to get on in. Gemini, for the steal, walks right in. It's not going down. He gets kicked away. The fight, though, he walks back up. J-Team didn't focus the Baron, Clement. Not enough damage. Feels like a broken record statement that we've been saying. And as the Baron gets stolen under their nose, it truly reads true when we say that nothing in Game 1 has gone right from start to finish for JT.
Oh, this is going to be such a massacre right here. Uniboy trying to fly away and he still gets taken down. Well, that's the game.
Clement.
Oh, boy. I got to say, this is probably the most one-sided draft diff game we have seen out of the entirety of playoffs. J-Team backed themselves into a massive corner. You could tell that they had no idea how they were supposed to take the fights in the later phase of the game because they just didn't have a win condition for it. There's no way they were supposed to win these 5v5s, and the last couple of ones, they were pretty entertaining, but I don't think it's a very serious matter. Like, we saw like Uniboy flying into the backline and realizing, wait a minute, my team actually has no chase potential. They don't have damage, and I've just set myself in the middle of 4 people. in the last fight as well. You can see that, hey, they already taken down the Nocturne to 500 HP, and they still don't have the damage to kill him. The Nocturne just walks right back in and even takes the Baron. What was that?
Oh, God. It's such a sad story for J-Team, and I can't help but laugh. I feel bad because, you know, J-Team had some windows in the early game. We saw the strength in the first 5 minutes, but the ball didn't keep rolling. CFO had such a tame game. And even after 4 or 5 attempts at the Baron, you're still sitting there going, well, it doesn't really matter for CDBC flying away stuff because everything was built for their composition. They're very well-rounded composition, Clement, it's fair to say. Because that game number 1, you're right. I don't think I've seen a draft diff, you know, LPL or PCS, that massive in most of the regular season for both leagues. Like, it was very cut and dry.
Yeah, and I think this does harken back to some of the ideas that they drafted. If you're going for the Caitlyn and Karma, I feel like you have to do what T1 does and commit to a full 3-lane win composition. You can't kind of back out midway and say, oh, I'm just going to go for Gragas in the top lane. Gragas does not win you lane, by the way. You can't go for, like, Twisted Fate. These are not winning lanes. I think if they wanted to go with this strategy, they had to hard commit. They had to go for the Renekton, and they had to go for the keep the Syndra LeBlancs open. I think that was the most important thing about this draft. You have to go full early game if you want to go in this fashion. And because of the draft, they had no teamfight win condition. Like, I don't think they knew what they were supposed to do in teamfights at all. Like,
didn't we talk heavily about the strength of J-Team in the early game? Like, Uniboy, Kongyue, been a really strong mid 2v2. Drivers impressed us a lot. And it was just a completely different direction from when we said, hey, these guys, I think we'll draft towards mid 2v2. They banned out Syndra themselves. We lost a couple of mid laners along the way. It was sad to see that this wasn't the J team that deserves to be in the second seed, right? Or rather, earned the second seed at the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. But I will say one thing that I don't think this was, we didn't get to see J team, they didn't flunk in execution much at all. I feel like this was just purely a draft loss. They go back to the board. If I'm the coach, I stand up and I say, sorry players, I drafted you a terrible draft. We're going to go back. We're going to wipe this game clean. And you guys actually didn't play that bad. You just weren't given the tools to success, and the win conditions were too narrow. So I think that's how J-Team has to approach game 2. They just wipe this completely off of their mind. The coach has to just, he doesn't have to take out the Japanese knives just yet, but he can like he can just say sorry to the team, and we move.
Clement, we've the belt, the orange is probably better there, but the knives. Oh man, it's not that. It's only game 1.
It's game 1.
It's game 1. Oranges first, then we get to the knives. Okay. At the very least, you're right. Coming back to it and giving some credit where credit's due. I mean, Lil V and Enzo in the 2v2 had a very good early laning phase, right? We did see some semblance of a gold lead for J-Team, but it's the transition, right? And I think it's worth mentioning mission in this game, Clement, because even though Uniboy had a couple of ults later on, in the early game, he could never leave lane. Like, Mission smashed him on what is considered Uniboy's favorite pick.
Yeah, we didn't see the first Destiny Gate until the tower plates were gone. So that's not what you really want to do with a Siege Bow composition. And I just think it's a matter of them running the Twisted Fate into the Nocturne. They already saw the Nocturne. They ran the Twisted Fate into it regardless. And it mainly did come from CFO recognizing that the last viable champion coming in from Uniboy is that Zoe. So I think in the next draft, we will see a much higher priority on the champions for Uniboy. Again, his big 3 is Orianna, Syndra, and Zoe. If he gets one of those big 3s, so far his KDAs have remained over 40. So I think if he gets one of them, then they're in a much better position.
Yeah, again, adjustment here for JT. That's what we want to see. For CFO, running it back when we saw the intelligent draft coming through, we saw what the Nocturne provided, even the Aatrox later on, you're saying, going up against that composition feels nice. And it is nice, again, to see strength in solo lanes from CFO. But I think more importantly as well, that concrete will that came through, where we knew that CFO had a very good understanding of what their composition was about and how lax they could take the game, Clement. Like, especially this man, right? The Zoe's like, okay, I have free access to this team. 47% of his team's damage. I don't think I'm that surprised, but it's still a hell of a lot.
He did 3 times the amount of damage that Uniboy did that game, and 5 times the amount of damage coming in from Kongyue. So, absolutely one-sided slaughter. And this is something that I feel like Mission is severely underappreciated for. He's not only extremely good on Syndra, Orianna, Victor, he can actually just play the entire field. Like, all the champions in the meta right now, he can actually just play. Now, I think that just gives them such a massive drafting advantage over Uniboy. I feel like Uniboy comes in from the exact opposite direction. If he doesn't get his champions, then he just kind of disappears, and so along with J-Team's hopes at sustaining a mid to late game strategy. But Mission, he's a toolbox. He can play whatever is needed of him and play everything to a very decent degree.
Such an intelligent takeaway. Again, you talked about draft. The takeaway of this, Zoe, after the LeBlanc ban, taking it away from Uniboy himself. It's massive 5-head, and I'm proud to watch this CFO roster over the course of this series, because that was such a bang in game number 1. Hopefully J-Team have an adjustment here, otherwise Clement Chu will be very upset. Let's see what happens in game 2, if we get a bit more of a series out of this one right after this.